Thank you, Chris, for very kind introductions. And good afternoon. And many thanks for coming to this talk. In my presentation, we will first explore how in the 70 years that followed the end of the Korean War in 1953, South Korea went from being one of the world's poorest countries to an economic powerhouse. That serves as a good background to understand the second part of my talk on the origin and current status of the Korean wave, the Hallyu. In 2021, the UN Conference on Trade and Development upgraded South Korea's economy from developing to developed. Some call it in the miracle on the Han River. But what really happened to cause such a transformation? Let's go back to the beginning of the 20th century. In 1910, the 518 years old Joseon, Korea's last dynasty, ended as Korea was annexed to Japan. In 1945, as World War II ended, Korea gained independence after 35 years of Japan's occupational rule. However, before Korea could enjoy their freedom, the country was divided into two, the North under the influence of the Soviet Union and the South under that of the United States. Then, on June 25th, on June 25th, 1950, the Korean War broke out. South Korea suffered most of the war's 5 million casualty, and its newly formed republic was left in a state of devastation. And if you see here, you can see the soldiers advancing to north while the refugees coming down to south. However, during the busy restoration efforts, education became the nation's highest priority. Although they were struggling from day to day, Korean parents did not give up on the education of their children. Study hard, they said. That way you can succeed, and that way you can live as a decent human being. Despite the war's devastations, government invested in education, making primary and middle school attendance compulsory. This dedication to end investment in education produced a highly trained workforce that would later become the impetus for Korea's economic turnaround. Koreans have made immense sacrifices for the next generations. So Korea was completely destroyed and devastated after the Korean War. Unable to recover from the ruins of the war on its own, Korea was forced to rely on foreign aid. But the aid subsided after completion of major restoration work, stalling Korea's economic growth. This was a dire situation for a nation whose budget had relied more than 90% on the foreign aid. It was at this time, in 1961, that a military regime under General Park Chung-hee came into power. Having succeeded in a coup, its leadership made economic development their top priority, if only to quell widespread public turmoil. In order to spur economic growth, the regime founded the Economic Planning Board, giving it unprecedented powers for allocating the budget and for attracting foreign capital. The Economic Planning Board developed a 5-year plan, which was to be a new blueprint for economic development. The plan was announced on January 13, 1962, and this plan laid the foundation for Korea's astounding economic growth that the world came to call the miracle on the Han River. However, there was an initial problem with acquisition of funds, and unfortunately, the United States reacted with indifference. And Samuel D. Berger, the U.S. ambassador to South Korea, sent a very negative report on the plan to Washington, D.C. But Korea did not give up, and after intense effort, was able to secure an inflow of capital from West Germany. South Korea sent many miners and nurses to work in West Germany. They sent their earnings home, and the government was able to obtain loans by pledging these funds as collateral. This was helpful, but far from enough to attract sufficient funds to carry out the 5-year plan. The Korean economy took a nosedive. Fortunately, light industry sectors like textiles, wigs, and needlework developed rapidly and created momentums for Korean economic growth. The government responded to the market's demands and fostered free enterprise, while also guiding the economy with policies such as rationalizing of the exchange rate and interest rates in 1964 and 1965. However, since the light industry relied on low-cost wages, their competitiveness weakened when wages increased. The government encouraged the growth of new industries such as steel, coal, chemicals, machinery, and shipbuilding to create a powerful engine for economic growth. Steel was the first heavy industry to be developed. Despite skepticism about the feasibility of such a venture, the government launched a massive effort to build an integrated steel mill in 1970. The United States and other nations viewed the project with doubt, as the steel industry requires massive investment and cutting-edge technology. According to the International Bank for Reconstruction and Development, quote, "The economic viability of such project is doubtful, and therefore Korea should postpone its building of integrated steel mill." In spite of such skepticism, the Pohang Steel Mill under the company POSCO began production in 1973. It is said by the Park Tae-jun, the former chairman of POSCO, "We thought to industrialize the structure of the national economy with manufacturing at its heart. Therefore, we promoted the steel industry, which was known to be the most basic industry." Although it entered the steel industry about 6 years later than more advanced nations, Korea soon became the world's 6th largest producer of steel. The success of this primary industry paved the way for the advancement of steel-related industries, such as automobiles, fine machinery, constructions, and shipbuildings. The Korean economy has shown that without adventure, there can be no growth. The 새마을 운동 is considered as one of the crucial forces in production and in promoting the growth of Korean industry. It is a government program providing raw materials to communities for development of homes and industries. In his 2012 speech, Barack Obama, then President of the United States, remarked, "To solve Africa's problems of poverty, Africa must adopt Korea's 새마을운동 as its role model." And in fact, the idea and philosophy and practice of 새마을운동 was exported to Africa in early 2000s, and they kind of follow the path of Koreans in 1960s and 70s. When the 새마을운동 began in 1970, the Korean government was virtually bankrupt, but the support it managed to provide was used effectively by Koreans to improve their living standards. 33,267 villages in Korea received free cement for the next 2 years. Villages that showed promise were given additional cement and steel. The government decided to support the communities that had the will to stand on their own. The people also cast off self-doubt and gained confidence that anything was possible, which nurtured hope for a bright future. Once a movement to increase the revenues of farming communities, the 새마을운동 made its way into all sections of society, increasing social awareness in cities, factories, and workplaces. This showed that poverty could not be overcome through foreign aid alone, and that the true path to success lies in deeply rooted solutions that can change the core of society. The confidence that anything is possible allows one to climb out of even the deepest abyss of despair. This grassroots effort, coupled with a global economic boom, helped fuel amazing economic growth in Korea. But a crisis emerged from an unexpected source. Following the October 1973 Yom Kippur War between Israel and its neighbors, Arab countries began an oil embargo against countries that had supported Israel, which resulted in soaring prices for oil and other raw materials. The domestic factories ground to a halt while inflation soared. This was a critical blow to Korea since it was a country without a drop of oil and had just begun to industrialize. But this crisis proved to be an opportunity. Skyrocketing oil prices led to a construction boom in the Middle East. The South Korean government took advantage of the situation by dispatching workers to the region and constructing $10 billion worth of buildings a year. As such, Korea used oil crisis to stimulate economic growth. In 1979, another oil shock occurred in the wake of the Iranian Revolution. But after learning valuable lessons from the first crisis, Korea overcame the second shock without much difficulty. During the two oil shocks, most other countries decreased investment, but not Korea. During the first shock, Korea invested heavily in the steel, oil, chemicals, machinery, and shipbuilding industries. In response to the second oil shock, Korea restructured its economy. Its strategy was right on the target. The phenomena of the three lows, low US dollars, low oil prices, and low interest rates, helped the Korean economy flourish in the 1980s. The automobile industry has been a powerful engine for economic growth in Korea. The industry did experience countless ups and downs, taking bitter lessons from various difficulties. But the Korean compact auto produced with a sweat of dedicated workforce was received favorably in the United States in the 1980s. That served to open a new era in the Korean automotive industry, which would enjoy explosive growth in the coming years. In addition, Korea built production lines and factories in the United States, and they researched and developed designs and technology that Americans wanted. That resulted in increased sales and a decrease in export expenses. The localization strategy, based on through market analysis, enabled Korea to succeed despite being a latecomer in the global markets. The semiconductor industry was another risky venture. But thanks to aggressive government support, South Korea succeeded in developing the state-of-the-art 64K DRAM, which led to its global leadership in the industry. In only 10 years, Korea has secured a dominant share of the global market and is currently the world's second largest semiconductor produced after Taiwan. In 1983, Samsung Electronics developed Korea's first 64K DRAM, successfully overpowered the foreign companies in developing new products. Korea also attempted a revolution in the information technology industry, the cutting-edge enterprises that were founded during the IT boom, new stimulus to the economy, enabling Korea to become IT powerhouse in a matter of years. Korea's export-based economy became even more competitive, and the nation's per capita GNP rose sharply. These achievements came after only 33 years of Korea's economic development efforts. Thanks to the success, South Korea became a member of the World Trade Organization, WTO, in 1995, and a member of OECD, Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, in 1996. But this success blinded nations to lurking dangers of the global economy. Quite simply, it can be said that Korea had popped the champagne cork too soon. The Asian financial crisis, which started in Thailand, spread through East Asia like wildfire. Korea was no means exempt from this crisis. 6 out of the 10 largest corporations in the country were in danger of bankruptcy. Even the conglomerates or chaebol of Korea were on the verge of collapse. On November 21st, 1997, Korea applied for relief assistance from the International Monetary Fund, also known as IMF. Corporate downsizing became the order of the day, while the people of Korea, who once dreamed of joining the world's advanced countries, were burdened to share the pain. Then again, the financial crisis presented an opportunity for economic reforms. Insolvent financial institutions were shut down or merged, while corporate business underwent extensive restructuring. Management systems were also changed to include principles based on competition and performance. According to James W. Adams, the former vice president of the World Bank, first of all, Korea recognized that it had to restructure some of its policies and some of the industries. And then it did that aggressively and forcefully, provided leadership in that. It did not wait for the rest of the world to make it happen. As a result, foreign exchange reserves, which had dwindled to $3.9 billion during the financial crisis, surged to $99 billion in September 2001, making South Korea the country with the fifth highest foreign exchange reserves in the world. Repayment to the IMF, which began in 1998, was completed in August 2001 with a final installment of $350 million. In a truly moving achievement, Korea managed to pay off the loan 3 years ahead of deadline. Early payoff of the IMF loan was made possible by the efforts of the Korean people who worked cooperatively to overcome the financial crisis. And this innovation, which turned the crisis situation into an opportunity, is the power that strengthened the Korean economy. Due to the financial crisis in 1997, the value of currency plummeted and the value of gold skyrocketed. But the people of Korea impressed the world by voluntarily contributing to a national gold campaign. So in the 21st century, the rapidly changing global market environment and endless competition threatened the Korea's economic growth. For growth to continue, a powerful change was necessary. An innovation system was implemented through the whole economy. Korea broke away from being centered on existing heavy industries and manufacturing and changed its export structure to technology-intensive industry. Supportive government policies such as providing subsidy tax cuts and more also helped. So once one of the poorest nations in the world, Korea has built an economic success story from the ruins of war. And in 2009, Korea joined the OECD's Development Assistance Committee. Korea has become the world's only nation among those that gained independence after World War II to evolve from an aid recipient to an aid donor. The strategy and know-how of Korea's economic development out of absolute poverty is now benchmarked by many countries all over the world. And in joining the G20, South Korea has taken on new challenges for the world's future as a responsible member of the international community. So now I would like to shift our attention to political and social aspect of South Korea for the last 70 years. In 1961, the military general Park Chung-hee ascended to power through a military coup. He served as president of Korea until 1979, when he was assassinated by his close friend and the director of the Korean CIA. As seen in the earlier, he implemented a series of economic reforms that led to rapid economic growth and industrialization, which is now known as the Miracle on the Han River. But this era also saw the formation of 재벌, or family conglomerates supported by the state, such as Samsung, Hyundai, and LG. However, the rapid growth of the economy in the 1960s and 1970s was made at the expense of labor rights and human liberties. In 1972, Park declared martial law after carrying out a self-coup and introduced the highly authoritarian Yushin Constitution. Park argued that Western-style liberal democracy was not suitable for South Korea because of its still developing economy. Instead, he argued that Korean-style democracy with a strong, unchallenged presidency was the only way to keep the country stable. Ruling as a dictator, he constantly repressed political opposition and dissent and completely controlled the military. He also had much control over the media and expressions of art. After Park's assassination, Korea went through much social and political turbulence. However, on December 12, 1979, another army general, Chun Do-hwan, gained power through a military coup. And on May 17 of the next year, he consolidated his military dictatorship through another military coup, then declared martial law for the entire nations. The action closed the universities, banned political activities, and further curtailed the press. The events of May 17 meant the beginning of another military dictatorships. Under all the military regimes, the people were highly restricted in every aspect of their lives. Junior and high school students had to wear school uniforms, and there were rules concerning hairstyle and length of skirts. From 1964, there was a night curfew system. On the surface, it was to establish and maintain public order, but it actually served to limit people's time and space in order to control thought and protect national security and suppress political resistance. From midnight to 4 a.m., people were not allowed outside on the street, and if so, they were arrested by the police. However, this night curfew was lifted in 1982. In March 1982, after the curfew was removed, late-night theaters were reopened. This was part of an appeasement effort by the Chun Do-hwan and government designed to divert people's attention from politics. It was referred to as the 3S policy, that is, sex, sports, and screen. As a result, late-night theaters were permitted and professional baseball league was launched. The 1986 Asian Games and 1988 Olympic Games were brought to Korea to distract people. And filmmakers who had been demanding the liberalization of film production were suddenly rewarded with an abundance of late-night theaters. Many erotic and softcore pornographic films were made. The movies were censored, but the censorship was lenient toward morals, while severely restricting democratic themes. Although South Korea enjoyed economic growth and cultural freedom, there were continuous protests calling for democratizations. And one of the two significant democratic movements was the Gwangju Uprising. The Gwangju Uprising happened the very next day after Chun Do-hwan declared martial law on May 17, 1980. Also known as Gwangju Democratic Movement, the uprising began when Jeonnam National University students demonstrating against martial law were fired on, killed, and beaten by the South Korean military. During the conflict, South Korean soldiers indiscriminately clubbed demonstrators and bystanders. And as the conflict escalated, the army opened fire on citizens, killing an unknown numbers of protestants near Gwangju stations. Hundreds of taxis led a parade of buses, trucks, and cars to the provincial office in protest. These drivers of democracy showed up to support the demonstration because of the brutality of the South Korean government. In response, soldiers fired tear gas at them, pulled them out of their vehicles, and beat them. This only led more drivers to join the protest. Many taxi drivers were assaulted when trying to transport their injured to hospitals. Some taxi drivers were shot after they attempted to use their vehicles as weapons or barricade. The army blocked all routes and communications from the city, and fighting died down. The 10-day resistance ended on May 27, leaving casualties of 2,000 Gwangju citizens and 3,000 wounded. The 1980s in Korea were turbulent and dynamic. Of all events in Korean history, I would say that democratization was the most critical and meaningful. However, Korea's democratization did not come easy or freely. On June 9, 1987, Yonsei University student Lee Han-yeol participated in a demonstration against the Jeondu-hwan dictatorships. A tear gas canister fired by riot police penetrated his skull. That very moment was captured by a news reporter's photograph, as seen here. His fellow students rushed him to Yonsei Severance Hospital, where he remained in critical condition until his death on July 5th. On July 9th, over 1 million people participated in his funeral. This was not the first death of college students that year. In January of the same year, 21-year-old Park Jong-chul, who attended Seoul National University, died after being arrested by the police. Contrary to initial announcement that shock was the cause of his death, it was later discovered that he was tortured by police, who shoved his head into a tub of water, and that his throat was first against the rim of the tub, and he was suffocated. The death of Park Jong-chul, along with Jeondu-hwan's authoritarianism and his proposal of his close friend Roh Tae-woo, another army general, as his successor, caused a nationwide pro-democratic demonstration. Unlike other demonstrations, this June democratic struggle was joined by persons of all social standings, including the religious groups, both Catholic priests and Buddhist monks, and participated in great numbers. Eventually, Roh Tae-woo, the presidential candidate of the ruling party, gave the June 29 declarations promising to amend the constitutions to provide for the direct election of the president and to ensure free candidature and genuinely competitive elections. Finally, in the 1992 election, the country's first civilian president in 30 years was voted in. And from 1994, the Korea government came to realize that soft power could be more influential and beneficial to the country's economy and cultural development, and vigorously supported the cultural area. The government now is actively leading the way in changing the economic constitutions by investing in money-making Hallyu phenomena, getting rid of regulations that restricts competitions in the promising service industry, and doing more for economic vitalizations. It was Winter Sonata that played a pivotal role in spreading the Korean wave beyond the East Asia. It achieved unprecedented success and popularity, especially in Japan, when it made the Yonsama syndrome for the actor Bae Yong-jun. The combination of the drama's romantic storyline and memorable characters and beautiful scenery captivated viewers and sparked dedicated fan culture. Fans visited shooting locations and other related sites. They also actively engaged in activities such as fan meetings and concerts and purchase of merchandise associated with a show and its actors. The emergence of Winter Sonata fan culture established a blueprint for subsequent Hallyu-related activities. Winter Sonata also played a meaningful role in strengthening diplomatic ties between South Korea and Japan. Its success in Japan paved the way for the Korean wave to reach other Asian countries, and its popularity laid the foundation for subsequent Korean dramas, music, and movies to captivate audiences throughout the regions. If Winter Sonata opened the door for the Korean wave, another historical drama, Jewel in the Palace, solidified the wave beyond Asia. With the Joseon Palace in the background, a low-class girl named Sunglim overcomes social discrimination in the rigid, hierarchical, and male-dominant society, and lends herself the position of royal chef, and later she becomes the royal physician and even cures a king with her foods. The story of her checked life with success and breakdowns, as well as her love story, intriguingly unfold. I actually learned of this film through my Chinese colleagues at the San Francisco Asian Art Museum back in 2004. So one day, two of them asked if I had seen Jewel in the Palace, which I then had not. They were fascinated by the exquisite Korean court food and traditional court-style hanbok fashion. And for a while, I had to lead a Korean food tour and searched for recipes for traditional Korean food. Once, there was a gala at the museum, and my colleagues, Chinese colleagues, strongly insist that I wear hanbok dress. And I did. For the first time since my wedding in Korea, I wore my hanbok, and that evening, I felt as if I had become a princess. Not only my Chinese colleagues, but other museum patrons who watched the Jewel in the Palace offered profuse compliments and asked to take pictures together. During the palace kindled interest in Korean tradition, including food, fashion, and social manners. And as I was then a curator of Korean art with a special focus on Joseon art, I was very proud to answer their questions about Korean pre-modern cultures. Korea experienced many strenuous historical events through the 20th century. The Japanese colonial period, the Korean War, division into South and North, conflicts and competition between the two Koreas, democratic movements in the 80s, economic discrepancy, and deep gaps between social classes. All these social and political issues have become good resources for filmmakers. Suffering and struggles were not overlooked. Instead, filmmakers sublimated them into meaningful and inspiring movies. For example, the film Assassination featured the independence fighters of the 1920s. Several characteristic features distinguish Korean movies from popular Western movies. In Korean movie, no single physically strong and righteous main hero overcomes all the hardships and finally survives. Instead, there are several characters who have both strong and weak points. Korean films comprise many different characters at once. They are depicted as very human individuals who undergo many trials and errors. Also, the films pay attention to women who play critical roles, reflecting their strong will and characters. One major change that occurred in the evolution of Korean films is the depiction of North Korea. For a long time, especially in the 1960s and 70s, North Koreans were shown as brutal enemies of South Korea. If a film featured a story of North and South, the former was always bad and the latter good. But this black and white view has been shaken since 2000. That year, the film JSA provided a whole new perspective. In the movie, two South Korean soldiers meet two North Korean soldiers at the national borders and develop a friendship. In the movie, an old and war-experienced North Korean soldier even played an older brother who led the group and made a wise decision when confronting a potentially fatal problem. Also, one scene showing the three of them switching their hats and taking a photo in front of portraits of the North Korean leaders, Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. And this was unprecedented and quite shocking, at least to me. The movie tells us that, after all, these soldiers are the same Koreans who speak the same language, love their countries, and want unification. It was an aha moment for me. Having been born and attended schools in South Korea, I was constantly told that North Koreans, especially communist leaders, were evil. As introduced earlier, the Gwangju democratization movement was a shockingly sad instant in Korean history. The film industry has not forgotten this historical event and has revisited it again and again from different perspectives. Beginning with a pedal in 1996, at least 9 films about the incident have been made. While movies like May 18 And 26 years, and a taxi driver unfold the Gwangju uprisings from the perspective of Gwangju citizens. The main character of Excavator is an excavator driver and retired paratrooper mobilized to suppress a protest during the movement, and who accidentally gets involved in pursuit of an uncomfortable truth buried 20 years earlier. Even after 4 decades, these remain unsolved problems and hidden truths. But these films stir Korean society to look at unpleasant facts and uncomfortable issues. Likewise, the deaths of 2 college students in 1980 and the rise of collective protests are also remembered throughout the movies. They tell Korean society not to forget these young men who sacrificed their lives to move Korea toward democratization. And they remind us of how precious the freedom is that we may take for granted. On the other hand, the film Parasites and the Netflix drama Squid Game provide sharp and insightful commentary on class conflict and economic inequality. Starting as a genre of light comedy and drama, Parasite changed it to a thriller and even horror, concluding as a mystery with a confusing ending. With much symbolism such as water, ups and downs stairways, and smells, the film delivers a message in an artful manner that appeals to a wide global audience. Likewise, Squid Game shows a secret contest of 456 players all in deep financial trouble, who risk their lives in a series of deadly children's games. Disturbing scenes of human desire and betrayal are shown nakedly over a brightly colored background, and simple children's songs invoke a creepy feeling. While watching this simple yet alarming story, people might ask themselves what they would do if they received an invitation to the Squid Game and how they would play the game. Another characteristic feature of Korean movies and dramas is placing diverse genres in a single story. Almost obsessively, film directors add a little of everything: drama, comedy, tragedy, thrills, action, romance, and emotions. Some viewers compared Korean movies to a Korean food, bibimbap, which blends different colors and taste of seasons, sauteed vegetables and marinated meats over rice, topped by a fried egg, with ingredients cooked separately with different seasonings, yet mixed together with a red pepper sauce. Bibimbap provides unique taste and complete nutrition. Speaking of food, Hallyu is not just pop culture. It penetrates to the grocery market. These are items my husband picked at his favorite market, Trader Joe's. Korean barbecue, galbi, has been in the frozen corner for a long time, but rice cake, tteokbokki, and japchae were pleasant surprises to me and made me realize the power of Hallyu. And last weekend, I went to my favorite hamburger franchise, Shake Shack Burger, and found Korean-inspired burger and spice fried chicken. And McDonald's released a limited edition BTS meal, a couple of years ago. And more food and beverages companies, including Coca-Cola, are partnering with K-pop stars in their production and marketing. And their fans buy them not to consume, but to collect as collectible items. It was about 10 years ago that I started hearing Psy's Gangnam Style on public radio and during my Zumba class, on the street, and practically everywhere. Even in a small cafe in Vermont, an elementary student came to me and asked if I was Korean. When I said yes, he asked me what Gangnam means in Psy's Gangnam Style song. I answered that Gangnam refers to the area where I used to live in Korea. Gang in Korea means river and Nam means south. Together, Gangnam refers to the area south of the river. Here, the river is the Han River, which crosses the city of Seoul. Gangnam was developed around the 1970s in order to move the crowded population north of the Han River. Before they built apartments, Gangnam was full of farmland and mulberry trees. Now Gangnam stands for luxury department stores and educational mecca due to private academies or cram schools, high-cost apartment complexes, and headquarters of major companies such as Hyundai Motors, GS, Caltex, NCSoft, and crypto exchange Upbit, as well as numerous startups. I don't know if I explained appropriately to the boy at his level, but Gangnam has become a brand itself, representing a luxurious and trendy places. And people who live there are considered rich and special. As someone who moved there in the early 1980s, when there were still farmlands in front of my apartment home, every time I return to Korea, I'm amazed how Gangnam changes so quickly and differently. After a few years passed and Psy's Gangnam Style was no longer played on the radio, I began to hear about BTS. I had no idea who they were, but the 7 very handsome and attractive Korean men became very influential. Not only youngers like them, but some of my friends, middle-aged women, both in Korea and the US, told me they are ARMY, the name for BTS fandom. ARMY stands for Adorable Representative MC for Youth. According to my ARMY friends and ARMY students, BTS songs send out good messages such as love yourself and speak for yourself. They claim that they were healed by listening to these songs. The BTS songs also led to many anti-hate campaigns. In May 2022, BTS visited White House and met President Joe Biden, helping to address the surge in anti-Asian hate crimes during the pandemic. And likewise, they were invited to the UN 3 times in 2018, 2020, and 21, and gave heartfelt and inspirational speeches about COVID-19, climate change, and love myself to young people. Their speech and dance performances at the UN had an incredible number of views and proved their popularity and influence in the world. The popularity of Korean content has led to a spike interest in the Korean language. Students are eager to learn the language because that helps them enjoy the culture and perhaps to be able to engage with their favorite singers or actors. According to the survey conducted by Duolingo, 56% of respondents said they were influenced by pop culture to learn a new language. This is an opportunity for South Korean to use a soft power to engage with the people, to reach out people across industry to increase its influence. In fact, the cultural influences brought by the Korean wave became an essential component of South Korean tourism. Over 35% of foreign visitors to South Korea in 2023 were under 30 years of age, and the purpose of their visit was to experience Korean culture, including food, fashion, art and architecture, shopping, and more. Therefore, it is no longer an unfamiliar sight to see foreigners wearing hanbok, Korean dress, strolling around palaces, and taking photos. In 2019, South Korean travel and tourism sector's contribution to the GDP was 4.4. However, during the pandemic in 2020, it fell to just 2.7%. Likewise, in 2021, only about 967,000 foreign tourists ventured into South Korea. But numbers more than tripled to about 3,198 million in 2002, and in 2003, over 6.5 million foreign visitors came to Korea. Thus, in 2023, the Korean Tourism Organization selected 50 tourism routes developed by the travel agencies centered around the concept of Hallyu. This include popular K-drama and movie filming locations, tourist spots associated with K-pop artists, and the best places to photograph a hanbok-wearing wedding. These places are promoted at 32 of KTO's foreign branches and online sites in different languages. There was a European fever for Chinese cultures in the 17th and 18th centuries, known as chinoiserie. Chinese blue and white porcelain decorative art, garden design, architecture, literature, theaters, and music became popular and influential and collectible. From the mid-19th century, Japanese art and design became very popular, and European Impressionist artists were greatly influenced and inspired by the Japanese multicolor woodblock prints called ukiyo-e. Likewise, from the late 20th century, Hallyu arose and charmed the world. And as a Korean and art historian, I truly hope this phenomena makes a meaningful and lasting international cultural contributions. Thank you for listening to my talk on South Korea, and I hope this helps you to enjoy the non-traditional and wonderful exhibition Hallyu at MFA. Thank you. And now I would like to open the floor for questions. And I also met a few people who actually lived through these years of Korea, and I would love to hear about their experience or their response to many social and political and economic situations while they were in Korea.
We have microphones on either side of the room, so if there are questions or comments, happy to come to you with a microphone. Got it on the other side.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk. I'm actually a 2002 graduate of Dartmouth College, and I took, I think, what used to be that, AIMS 11 or Korean Studies 10 course. probably in like 2000 or 2001. And when I took that class, there was maybe about 15 of us in the class. Probably 14 of us were Korean or Korean American. I'm sort of curious how long you've been teaching there. I'm curious if that class has grown in popularity similar to those tourism numbers you shared, and what the makeup of that class is at a small town in New Hampshire.
If you could answer on the microphone just for the folks that are viewing from home.
Hi, and thanks for asking excellent questions. I started teaching at Dartmouth since 2011, and this is my 13th year, and I see the change in demography. When I offered, the introduction to Korean culture, exploring Korea through films and East meets West, there are a lot of Korean Americans or Asian Americans. However, now it's changed, and I see a couple of Korean Americans. I don't know why they are not coming, but it's full of non-Koreans and non-Asians. And I think it's a very good sign. I just had my first class of East meets West, and very interesting combination of different ethnic backgrounds, and from different regions, etc. So. And I asked them to have open-minded and share their experience and interest. So, yeah, it is changing. And Dartmouth has an exchange program with the Yonsei University. And for the last few years, it became one of the most competitive programs to get admitted to go to Korea. So I think it's a good sign. However, unfortunately, Dartmouth is the only Ivy League schools that doesn't offer Korean language. So we are trying. Students are submitting the appeals, and we're looking for the grants to open the class. Yes.
I know, I always have a question. Hi, I have a question about just kind of the psychological, almost genetic mentality of being Korean. I'm Korean, and that idea of us being the hermit kingdom, or a real stress on self-reliance, or being able to do things ourselves, it's almost like a genetic arrogance is built in, that we're the ones that can do it the best in the room, or like we're somehow the most capable. How much of that is translated into kind of this burgeoning, first world idea of Korea today?
Thanks for asking good questions. The idea of 빨리빨리, and Korea went through a lot of hardships, difficult time, wars, and the colonial period, etc. So maybe it's in their genes that in order to survive, they have to find out ways to move on. And so it's really interesting that I heard the comment by the flight attendants, actually, that the Koreans are the ones who, before the meal served and during the flight, they are the one who studied meals thoroughly and know what they would like to eat, and then pull out the tables and just getting ready, clean up. So, and there was, and also I also experienced there was some delay during layover and my travels, and one of the Korean women actually and asked to get all this passport, And she went on one of the chairs and just called their names. And then people just, very organizedly stand and, receive. And they just there were layover overnight. And I don't know how, but I just followed them because that would be the best way to, stay overnight at the airport. And they just, I don't know how, but they quickly found the best spot to stay overnight at the corner of the airport. And in the morning, they just kind of disappeared and went to the McDonald's, and they were having breakfast. And they lined up at the gate, the very gate. So I think this kind of things that we have to do pali, and we have to do it ourselves, and ourselves can protect ourselves only. I think it's a kind of accumulated experience throughout the history to survive and do better. So, but please give your thoughts and add any comments on these matters.
First of all, thank you so much for such an illuminating lecture. It was very moving because I was raised in Korea until I was age of 13 and had lived through some of the events that you mentioned, including the military regime of President Park and the protest. Of course, I was an elementary school student at the time, so I knew what was happening, but certainly didn't understand the historical or political, socio-political context. But I've been in Boston since I was a freshman in college and in the U.S. for obviously much of my life. But I do find myself thinking a lot about Korea, its heritage and obvious modernization that has taken place in the last 30 plus years. So I would love to just invite your thoughts related to perhaps even historical events that precedes 1950s. The fact that the Korea is geographically a small peninsula that is located between China and Japan, had been colonized or really attacked numerous times under those greater powers, greater military powers, how that might have, those histories might have influenced the trajectory of a Korean economy as well as cultural evolution. And relatedly, I would love to hear your commentary about how quickly the modern Korea has westernized. If I'm not mistaken, I believe South Korea has the lowest birth rate in the world. And I think for the couples in their 20s, perhaps highest rate of divorce. So I think it's fascinating to watch both how quickly Korea has developed economically, at the same time has adapted what would be considered sort of a Western values related to family and other values. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Actually, before I answer your questions, I think there were Professor Mecken raised your hand, and do you would like to give any comments? Yeah.
Thank you. It's sort of interesting. Here's a gang of 4 former Peace Corps volunteers who went to Korea in the first group that went there in 1966. And indeed, it has changed in the interval. It's amazing. But I just wanted to mention, up here? Okay. I just wanted to mention, my wife and I, in a couple of weeks, are going to Italy, riding the Korean wave, in a way. I've been asked to visit at the university in Siena and to talk about Korean poetry, which is what I used to teach. But there in Italy, in Siena, and then the following week in Venice to give a presentation on Korean poetry, because there are lots of students in Italy studying Korean language and Korean literature, and they would like to have somebody come in and talk about it and give them a presentation on that. And I just feel that we've been riding this wave now for decades, and what fun that has been.
Thank you. I think, do you want to add comments?
Thank you. I'm Ed Baker, and I'm the other end of the line of four that went to Korea in September 1966, when the per capita annual income was about $100. If you, we just, even those of us who have seen it every inch of the way, find it very hard to believe. I was going to ask you a question, but first, I guess, looking at this, I think it's Gyeongbokgung throne room, and it reminds me, because of the double roof, I guess, of Gyeonghae-ru, which is a pavilion in that palace where the Joseon dynasty used to receive foreign visitors, obviously ambassadorial type visitors. And we were invited about the 20th of September to a dinner held in our honor as the first Peace Corps group to come to Korea in Gyeonghae-ru. And it was a magical evening, which has really stuck with me all of my life. One thing I wanted to ask or say was, I thought that in talking about the democratization of Korea, which I think is really important, and the overcoming of the IMF crisis, you didn't mention Kim Dae-jung, who has a close connection with this city. He spent a year in exile here in 1983-4. And if anyone, if you can single out, which is not easy, or not even not necessary also, but if you were to single out a single person who had tremendous influence on the democratization and on the overcoming of 1997, it was Kim Dae-jung. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a chance to actually attend his lecture in San Francisco during my undergraduate year in Berkeley. And so I had the honor to kind of like meet him in person. I was one of the audience. And after he gave a lecture in in English and very heavy accents, everybody kind of like stood up and, clapped. And it was a very moving moment to, yeah, it's too bad that I didn't mention, but he was also the one who kind of like made infrastructures for IT, and he kind of foresaw the culture phenomena is coming. So I definitely would like to credit with that. Yeah.
I was hoping to get your perspective on Hallyu and that concept of Han, the Korean sort of trait, and whether, this sort of explosion, this global popularity, does that diminish that trait? Is that something that's going to go away, or is that sort of a sustained thing?
Well, I would very much like to see it, going more and lasting more, but that was the actually question we always had early, starting in like late 90s, and how long is it like a transition, or transitory, or is it long-lasting phenomena. I don't know, but I would love to have it lasting longer. In order to do that, there should be more more kind of like deep kind of investment and deep, like everybody, every artist, artisans, musicians, songwriters, film actors have their own kind of duties. But I think it's not going to stop right away. Yeah, and going back to your questions, it's very sad to see that not only the divorce rate moves up, rose, but also I heard that there are 삼포, 오포 generation who, 삼포 means they are doing things in their generation, like in life. I think it's the permanent house. They gave up to own house, and they gave up marriage, and they gave up children. And a few years ago, I had a trip to Japan, and I took a kind of cheap airplane, and I noticed there were all young college students around me, and I was the oldest one. I was very impressed, and I told my friends, wow, this is wonderful to see all these college students or young, early 20s go to Japan. And she told me, my friend told me that, oh, they are YOLO generation. So which means instead of kind of saving, they, first of all, it's very hard to get the permanent job, and so they work as a part-time in convenience stores, etc., and save money for a month or so, and then just spend it in a couple of days. So only thing kind of like they care is to put the photos of their trip on SNS, I don't know, like Facebook and that. So that mattered more than savings for later. Also, the education became very costly in Korea. It costs a lot because to send many of my friends actually told me that they spent more than half of their salary, monthly salary, to pay for cram schools or tutorings, etc., outside of school. So young people just either give up, or now a lot of women have careers and jobs and can support themselves. However, in Korea, many, I don't want to really offend, but the people still have, still think that women, there's a women's duty. Whatever you do, whatever you make, how much you make money or so, you have to do your women, like wives and mothers' duties. And that kind of gives them kind of conflicts, and that they don't want to kind of like live like that. They want to live their own lives. So I think that is somewhat westernized or modernized, but it's, I admit that it's very hard to be a career woman as well as wise mother and good wife and wise mother. You have to kind of give up one thing. Okay, did I answer to your questions? Yes. Oh.
Hi, I just want to say thank you for speaking. 감사합니다. Like, I'm actually a big fan of Hallyu, and when you talked about the Taejangum, you know, and my mom's Chinese, and so she got me on the wave. So I've been watching Korean dramas, gosh, since then, like 2002, and I was so excited that the exhibit was coming to Boston, actually. When I saw the Victoria Albert, I really wanted to come here. So I'm so happy that you're here and having this presentation. I just wanted to say thank you so much, and thank you for coming. And it's a great overture of everything. The films that you mentioned, I've seen a lot of them, and some of the dramas, like, and just seeing how it's just grown up so much. My brother was in the military, and he was stationed for the U.S. Military Air Force in Korea. My uncle was actually in Korea during the 50s and 40s as well, after World War II. So he definitely talked about how it's so different now compared to when he went. And I've personally been to Korea 6 times, and just in the 10 years I've been to 6 years, it's changed so much. Gangnam especially has changed so much, and I can attest to that. So just so happy seeing the food, like same thing, Trader Joe's. I was laughing actually when you show the japchae and the tteokbokki. I've had that, and the galbi has been something I've been buying for years. So it's really cool. You didn't mention the kimbap, which I've noticed has been very popular, and everyone wants to try it. I haven't had it there. I've had kimbap, obviously. I can make it out of my friends that I had in Korea, so I've never had the frozen kimbap by Trader Joe's, but supposedly it's good. I don't know. But I just wanted to say overall, thank you so much, and I just really enjoyed your speak a lot. So. My name is Anna. I'm actually a volunteer here, so thank you.
Okay, we have one question that came in online, and we're going to end with that question, and I encourage everyone to go down and chat with Sunglim after. The last question is, how could other countries replicate Korea's soft power? They're impressed with how much the country has marketed itself to the world.
That's a very big question.
We can sort of wrap up and end there if you feel like that would be better to table on down the road.
I wish I knew the answer, and if I do, I would, love to write a genre and a book about it. They do, but I would say this Korean wave. The phenomenon of Korean wave didn't come, instantly. I think it's really based on the deep-rooted cultures, Korean cultures, traditional cultures, and aesthetics. So I know many of them kind of like, invited like JYP and other the entertainment producers to train their girl groups and idols, choreography and songs, etc. So, but I think like each culture has their own kind of like distinctive, I don't know, things like cultural ideas, spirits, and artistic kind of things. So, well, I don't know the answers, but thank you for
Perfect
asking.
place to end. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for everyone coming today, and thank you so much, Sunglim.